Okay, 11.4. After the addition law, we are talking about the multiplication law, similar to the counting principle. We also have a multiplication law, but difference from the counting principle. Here, we will make the multiplication law a little bit complicated because we have two situations to handle for multiplication. First one is so-called the when we are multiplying some independent events. Now we have independence, then it means that we have dependence. So what is the meaning of independence and dependence events? So for independence, we will learn more about 11.5. But here we just want to know a little bit differences between these two. Now, thinking about, I think all of you wants to have a successful life. Now, imagine that successful life is a kind of events. In order to make these events to be happen, the probability of being success is actually you can think of whether some factor is independent with the success and whether some factors is dependent with the success. Okay, you can think of it 3 seconds or pause the video. Okay, I can think of that the gender is independent with whether you are success. Whether you are a woman or whether you are a man, the probability of getting success will have no difference. Okay, and for dependent events, I can think of the preparation. So whether you have prepared for your life. Do you know the Chinese 機會係留俾有準備嘅人? If you have prepared, you have a lot of opportunities, meaning that you can have a greater success. So you can see that the probability of success depends on preparation. Okay. On the other hand, you can see that the gender is independent of whether you can getting a success, or the success is independent of what kinds of genders you have. That's what I believe. Normally, in the questions, we always assume those events are independent. Now, when you think deeply, actually, do you think that the success is really independent of gender? Now, maybe in the modern world, because of the gender inequality, the success will be much likely the same. But think about in the ancient time. For example, when we are talking about Han Dynasty, so do you think that a woman have a higher success probability than the man, or men having a higher success probability than the woman? Obviously, you can see that the man having a higher success probability, and so normally when we are talking about the independence event, we always kind of assuming. Because we believe one thing, I think in Bible we are also talking about this thing. All things work together. In Chinese, 萬事都互相效力. So you can see that no things can live independently. They are actually correlating to each other. Now, when we are talking about multiplication's law, okay, it's actually similar to the counting principle. When we are talking about two events to happen to each other, happen at the same time, we need to multiply them together. So, if we want to know that these two events happen each other, A and B should happen to each other, then we can think of the probability that A will happen times the probability of B that will happen. So that is the equation that we need to know, and this equation only applies for independent event. Okay, let's see some examples to it to get this much more familiar.